Welcome back, Dolphins fans. Hit that like and subscribe if you like this video. Today, I'm going to be going over a couple of trade proposals. They're not crazy. It's just for Tyreek Hill, in order to get him off this team, what you're going to start seeing, we'll go over the cap in Spotrac, is that if we can figure out a trade where the team takes on the contract, frees up a astronomical amount of cap space. You know, we can literally go from like 9 million in cap space to almost like 50 million if just Tyreek Hill is gone, or 40 million if he's gone, if they take on the contract. Now, how I think this is going to go, not going to be getting a bunch of stuff for Tyreek Hill. The point of this is just to get him off the team. So you take a later pick depending on how much contract is taken on. So if they want to take on a full contract, 4th round pick, I would even take that, maybe even a 5th, if you want to take on the entire contract. If you don't, probably closer to like 3rd or 2nd, but we'll get into it right now. So here we go. We'll go through the top 3 trades. First off, want to say this one right here, New England Patriots. That one might be a tough one just because they're in our division. I don't think we want to. But here's the thing. I think that you have to take on the contract in order to trade for Tyreek Hill. I think that would be a mandatory, that we got to go for somebody that's going to take a contract, and we'll take a much less of a draft pick, like a 4th or, depending on it, or a 3rd, and we'll take on some of the cap. But it would just be a way to move Tyreek Hill off the team, because I just don't think you can, I know a lot of people are saying that we're not going to be able to reach where we need to reach, but here's the thing. I definitely think that we can if we get the right receiver. So if we can move Tyreek Hill in the offseason, I think you definitely 1st or 2nd round receiver is coming to this team, because, and a free agent option, you get someone that is less of a headache. And I know Tyreek Hill is dynamic, but to be honest, the dynamicness kind of faded away because they're playing 2 high safeties. They're taking away what Tyreek Hill does best. So, and the thing is Jalen Waddle does the same exact thing. Like, it's not, here's the thing. Jalen Waddle does the same exact thing that Tyreek Hill does, and he's almost just as fast as Tyreek Hill is. If the plays were called for Jalen Waddle versus Tyreek Hill, it's going to be a similar result, and you've seen it throughout the years. Now, do I think that Jalen Waddle can be the number 1? Maybe, but I also think if there's an option to draft, I think it's like the Missouri receiver, or I forgot his name, something the 3rd or something. I forgot. I'll get him up, but that's what you do. But Las Vegas Raiders. We all know that the Las Vegas Raiders, they love their speed. And here's the thing. They got a lot of cap space. They're getting Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, whichever one. But they're going to be getting one of the quarterbacks in this draft. The Raiders love their speed when it comes to wide receivers. So if the Raiders can sit there and throw us a 4th round pick, take on his salary, take on his entire salary, I think that's the best option, honestly. That would probably be the premier option to do with Tyreek Hill. If you sit there and you throw Tyreek Hill, take on his contract, and you just throw us a 3rd or a 4th, and you get that guy on your team to help Shedeur Sanders, or I'm guessing it's Shedeur Sanders that's going to go over there. That's probably a top option. And you got to figure for the Las Vegas Raiders, there's, the contract is huge, but for a 4th round pick, you're getting one of the elite receivers in the league. Because I still think that Tyreek Hill is one of the best receivers in the league. You're getting a stud at 31 for a very small draft pick. That's a big option for the Miami Dolphins, to have a team take on his contract. When you remove all of that cap, I think at this point, it's like 41 million, and we'll go over that in a second. You remove all of that cap, that alleviates so much room in free agency to maneuver. You're going to have so much more cap space in free agency to either get a wide receiver, like some people are saying, like T. Higgins, or to be able to sign a bunch of great offensive linemen that aren't injury prone, that we can just get over here and just have humongous amounts of depth at the offensive line. So Raiders is going to be my number one pick for that Tyreek Hill trade. I mean, like I said, throw us a third or a fourth, and you just take on the entire contract, and you give Miami Dolphins basically like $40 million in cap room, and get him off this team, because we all like to say that, Tyreek Hill is this team and all of that. But I honestly think if you switch this out and you put Tua with a great offensive line, he's going to be able to hit every receiver. He'll have enough time to do that. I think the reason that you have Tyreek Hill is because you have a crap offensive line. So that's the reason why he's so useful, because he gets open so fast. But here's the thing. Jalen Waddle has shown that he can carry a team. And Malik Washington looks very good. So you get one more receiver to that. You're not really missing much. And like we all have been saying, you get that like big-bodied, tall wide receiver that can compete for the ball in the air. And that does something different. It's like we have too many of the same thing. It's just little tiny speed guys. That's what we have all over this team. And I think the direction that you need to take is getting a big body receiver that can go up for these balls, that can make Tua's life easier. So the next option is going to be Arizona. Arizona maybe doesn't take on his entire contract, but if they can take on most of it and throw us a fourth rounder, they had a pretty decent offense with Marvin Harrison, and they have their tight end, but they don't really have anybody besides that. So getting Tyreek Hill for a small draft pick, they're kind of pushing for a playoff run. They're not really in rebuild mode. They're really pushing for a playoff run. So getting them to also take on most of the contract and throwing us maybe, here's the thing. You give a fourth if you take on the entire contract. We'll take a fourth for the entire contract. You take on the entire thing, take a fourth round pick. If you're going to take on most of it and we still got to have some of it, that's a third rounder. Definitely throw us a third rounder, and we'll take on some of the contract for you. But Arizona definitely needs that second wide receiver, that playmaker that is opposite Marvin Harrison. And, I think Tyreek Hill would be an awesome fit right there. Arizona, they need that burner. They don't really have that burner on their team. Just like the Las Vegas Raiders, they're going to be searching for a wide receiver in this market. And the thing that we hold the cards with Tyreek Hill is that we really just kind of want to move him. We want to get him off the team. So we're not going to be taking, a first round pick for Tyreek Hill. We're probably going to take like a late round pick. And that's probably what's going to hold most teams to wanting him, because it's just a contract. If you're able to take on the contract, you can get, a dynamic playmaker for a late round pick. So that would be another option with Arizona, is you take on most of the contract, you give us a third round pick, and you take Tyreek Hill off this team. And honestly, it's kind of weird, but the last one might be, Minnesota. Because like I said, I don't think we're going to trade him to the Patriots. It would just be kind of stupid to trade him to the Patriots so that we have to face them twice a year. But Minnesota needs another guy opposite of Justin Jefferson. And this would be a dude for, 2 years while you have Justin Jefferson there. You have another elite dynamic playmaker opposite Justin Jefferson. And they would probably take on most of his contract as well. This would be another option here. I don't think Chicago needs him. I don't think Washington. Maybe Washington as well. Washington might be another option. Actually, I'm leaning. Yeah, maybe Washington. Maybe Washington takes on that full contract, throws us a fourth round pick. Yeah, I think that would be my third choice, honestly. Washington. So Las Vegas, Washington, and Arizona, and even Minnesota, maybe. They're definitely, and especially like Arizona, they have most of their players under contract, as you can see. Players right there active, 55. They have most of their players under contract, so they're not going to be dipping and diving in free agency. And so do the Raiders. So, yeah, like I said, these are the three options that I think, plus the Vikings. You can get a late round pick, and you'll be able to move Tyreek Hill, and most of these teams will be able to take on that contract. That's going to be probably the bartering option here, is that depending on how much contract you're taking is the type of draft pick that will accept for him. So if you're going to take on all of the contract, we'll accept a fourth. But if we're going to take on half the contract, it's got to be a second. Something like that. Then we'll go to the Dolphins. We got about $9 million in cap space. And you'll see right here, the dead cap that we'll have to take on is like $56 million. This cap hit this year is $30 million. So if someone wants to take on that entire contract, give us a 4th round pick, they're going to be taking on that $30 million. That goes from $9 million to $40 million in cap space. And then obviously we'll have all the different signings that go on. That'll turn from $9 million to $40 million. That gives you significant room. We'll see what happens with Teron Armstead. Honestly, kind of hoping he retires, because that will give us cap space. We'll probably restructure Bradley Chubb's contract. But getting Tyreek Hill off the team would be a significant cap boost, and it kind of gives us a lot of wiggle room to do what we need to do to sign the players we need to sign. Raheem Mostert's probably going to be gone. Channing Tindall will probably be gone. So we have a couple of players that, got to restructure his contract, or he's got to retire. He's just not there. Restructuring or retiring is the only option. No one's really going to accept Teron Armstead. He doesn't practice and he's injured all the time. No one's really going to want to trade for him or sign him. But I think this year, this guy has been, a problem for a pretty decent amount of time. So I think at this point, if you move this guy, it frees up so much more room to be able to maneuver around, get an offensive line, get multiple offensive linemen, restructure contacts. If we get rid of Tyreek Hill, we could probably bump this up to maybe like 60, 70 million in cap. And then you sign a bunch of young or younger, non-injury prone players for contracts, because what I'm saying is right here. Where is it? Where are you? I don't even see him, but where is he? Oh, we still have Odell Beckham under. Well, wherever he is, I don't see him, but you got to sign back the linebackers. What's his face? Dodson. You got to sign him back, or at least get someone similar to him, because he was great. But yeah, that's kind of what we need to do with Tyreek Hill right now. I just, again, like I said, some people are like, what are the Dolphins going to do without Tyreek Hill? I think we'll be fine. I think if you get an offensive line to it, can make Jalen Waddle back to being that number one receiver again. I think it's just he expected himself. Here's the thing: when we drafted Jalen Waddle, it was kind of expected that he would take on that type of role after that rookie season. So when we got Tyreek Hill, it frustrated him. I guarantee you it did, especially how Tyreek Hill acts. So yeah, that's what you're going to see. I think the Raiders, the Commanders, the Cardinals, those guys have enough cap room to take on Tyreek Hill's contract. They need a dynamic wide receiver, and it would just be a win-win for both sides. They would take on the contract, and they would be getting Tyreek Hill. They'd be getting a dynamic playmaker. Shadir Sanders or whoever they draft for the Raiders is going to need someone there. They don't really have any wide receivers, so they're going to need a dynamic playmaker, and we know that the Raiders love speed. And that's literally what Tyreek Hill is. They love that type of player. They love that specific, narcissistic type of player over in Oakland. And then obviously the Cardinals need another guy opposite Marvin Harrison. And, even the Cardinals, or I think I said the Cardinals, the Commanders, they don't really have, besides McLaurin, a wide receiver there. They need another dynamic playmaker. So that would be another option where these teams could take on that contract and, again, win-win. They get their dynamic playmaker for a late round pick. The Dolphins get cap room to sign whoever we need to sign. Because at the end of the day, if we move Tyreek Hill, we're going to draft a receiver, and I honestly think coming into this season, unless there's a stud offensive lineman at where we're picking, which is like 13, you're going for one of two things, or one of three things in this in the draft at the first round. You're going for Luther Burden, that's his name, the third. If he's there, you're going to go for an offensive lineman, or you're going to go for a defensive tackle. One of those three, but primarily the two. And then in the second round, you'll double up on whichever one you didn't get. So the second round, if you didn't get an offensive lineman, it has to be offensive lineman. And in free agency, you need to grab like 2 more guards to start, and then 2 or 3 more to back up. But if we move Tyreek Hill, all of that stuff gets freed up, and you almost kind of can do a reset, because you have to remember that Bradley Chubb is going to be coming back next year. So is Jalen Phillips. So defensively, it's not horrible. We could probably pick up a D tackle in free agency. Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer. I think we're solid right there. We just need a defensive tackle to kind of plug up the holes in the middle. And depending on if Calais Campbell wants to stay, you sign back Terrell Dodson. I think that would be a very good pickup. And, honestly, it's just the safeties at that point in free agency. We'll have to figure out the safety position. But going into the draft, if you can get rid of Tyreek Hill, draft Luther Burden, I think that would be, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like if you get rid of Tyreek Hill, you're drafting a receiver in the first round. You're going to draft one of those big body receivers, and Luther Burden out of, I think it's Missouri. Guy's perfect fit. Get that guy over here and let Jalen Waddle start taking on that more of that 1A role again, instead of it all being on Tyreek. And that's what I think can really, and then you just build that offensive line. And you can kind of have like a mini reset with the team by doing this. You have that little mini reset where you just get rid of one guy, get all that contract out, and free up a lot of space to bring in some young players and allow the young players to start filling the roles. And, again, it's about building a team, and we want to go to the Super Bowl, of course. But, I think it's best serving the team getting a bigger wide receiver than Tyreek Hill and getting him off the team so that we can play like a team. We forget Tyreek Hill had probably like 15 drops this year and probably like 30 in the past 3 years that he's been with us. He has key drops all the time. You need that guy that's going to make those catches. And I'm telling you, we'll talk more about it later on in the offseason, but you get rid of Tyreek Hill, you can bring in that number 1 drafted wide receiver and have that big body to go with something that we never really had, besides Devontae Parker, but he wasn't really that. You have a big receiver to give to a big target along with Jonnu Smith. And I tell you, that'll be a combination. But as always, guys, fins up, baby. Love you all. Sorry for the voice. Peace.